Here you go, guys. Pre-lesson for section 4.4, solving, there's the key word, polynomial equations. That's another key word. What we've been doing is factoring, with no understanding of really why we're doing it. But now you're going to find out that they're going to be put into equations and you are going to be asked to solve them. So this is a quick review of what we've been doing. We've been factoring things like this. And these are trinomials, and we call them data ones. So we can go right to our parentheses, and then we say, hey, that's an x, that's an x. Two factors of -6 to f to 1. Well, it's got to be a 3 and a 2. Now we got to decide which one's positive. Well, the 3 has to be positive because we need one more positive than we have negative. If you FOIL it, that's what you would get. And you would be done because you factored it. But we are now going to get into problems where we're going to need to know how to solve them. So you got to have the basics down. Think about this basic truth. If you multiply two numbers together and you get 0, don't you know that either A has to equal 0 or B has to equal 0? And this is what we're going to piggyback. Very simple logic, but you have to know, okay? Now, what happens if you have three things? A times B times C equals 0. Well, that means A equals 0, or B equals 0, or C equals 0. So you can have more than just one answer here. Okay, and we'll get to that. We'll get to a couple concrete examples where that happens. So now what about this? Well, the way I like to teach it is, here's your A, here's your B, equals 0. What did we say previously? Well, A has to equal 0, so x minus 2 has to equal 0. Or B, which is this, x plus 3 has to equal 0. And you just solve them independently. Add 2 to both sides, subtract 3 from both sides. And some of you out there are like, wait a minute, you don't need to take all that time to do that. You're right. You could just look in here and say, what minus 2 is 0? 2. What plus 3 is 0? -3. See, if you can just look at it and nail it, fantastic. However, I'm going to throw this in there for free. I didn't plan on doing this, but there will be times where you'll get stuff like this. And so let's just talk about that. So this one's piece of cake. What plus 2 is 0? -2. Some students, it takes a while to do these in your head. So let's go ahead and show you something. 3x minus 2 is 0. Add 2, add 2. So I get 3x is 2. Divide by 3, divide by 3. And I go, hey, looky there, 2/3. Now, how could I do that without doing all of this? Because my theory is getting the right answer is good, but getting the right answer quickly is great. Because if you're on time tests, stress is part of the story. And how do you avoid stress? Do things quick, okay? So wouldn't it have worked just to take this, take the opposite, so -2 goes to +2, and then just divide by this. That's the quick way. And basically you just did all this math in your head, essentially, because that's what you're doing, okay? Let's move on to this one. What do we have here? Well, this is an equation. See, it's this stuff equals 0. Now, I want you to know that setting it equal to 0 is your first step. Now, because this is already handmade for you, maybe I didn't need to say that, but I need to get that thought process going, especially for these types, okay? Anyways, it's already set equal to 0. So that's your first thing, set equal to 0. And of course, you want to put it in descending order of your variables, x squared, x, and then there's my constant. Then you're going to factor. Now, that word doesn't mean you do the same thing every time. There's a little different strategies for factoring, and I'm about to show you those. But this one's your GOTA1 trinomial. So we can just go like this. We say, hey, that's x. That's x. Two factors of -6 to add up to 1. Does this look familiar? It's the previous sample problem. So it's +3 minus 2. You're not done. Because the next thing is you're going to solve it. In other words, what plus 3 is 0? -3. What minus 2 is 0? 2. And there's your answers. This one's slightly different. Go through our checklist. Set equal to 0. Bing. Is it in descending order? Yes. 3, 2, 1. Good. Factor it. This is slightly different. Some of you are like, oh, that's a trinomial. You're not wrong. But notice this has an x, this has an x squared, this has an x cubed. You got to notice to take things out if you can. And now look at it. I know I'm going back to the well here, using the same trinomial, but the point is you got to look for that little trick right there to take the x out. Then I factor this. See, you're not done factoring. Factoring means keep factoring until you can't. And I can continue with this because I can factor it into two binomials. That x comes along for the ride. X, positive 3 minus 2. And see, now we have a times b times c. So let's start here. What could I put in there to cause this to be 0? 2. What could I put there to cause this to be 0? Negative 3. This one's so easy it's hard. What could I put into that to make it 0? Well, 0. And there you have it. Now I want you to notice something. There's 1, 2, 3 answers. Notice. My highest power of that polynomial is a 3. It's a huge clue. Look up here. My highest power is a 2, and I have 2 answers. Another word for answer is solution. Another answer for that, or word for that, is root. Okay, get used to that. Answer, solution, root. See, this has 3 roots, 3 answers, 3 solutions. Those are interchangeable words, so don't get thrown off when you hear that. Okay, my point is, some students see this and they go, aha, I'm going to divide by x. Don't you ever divide by the variable you're trying to solve for. Why? It seems like this is a good idea because this will go down to x squared plus x minus 6 is 0, and it really cleans it up nice. Then I factor it, and then I solve it. Negative 3 or 2. Do you notice something? By dividing by the variable you're trying to find, it reduced it to a 2 instead of a 3. And by doing that, it hid one answer because we're supposed to get a 0 also. Where did it go? Well, by dividing by the variable you're trying to find, you reduced it to a second-degree polynomial. That's why you only got 2 answers. Don't ever divide by the variable you're trying to find. That was a good tip right there. Okay, so a student would be tempted maybe to divide by x on this. No way, Jose. Look at it. I got to have 2 answers when I'm done. So I'm going to take an x out. I'm going to be left with x minus 1. And my 2 answers will be 1 or 0. See, the 0 comes from here, the 1 comes from here. There's my 2 answers. And here's the last one for your pre-lesson. Go back to here, set equal to 0. Put it in descending order. Now, one thing I didn't say is keep your highest power positive. In other words, I could subtract x squared from both sides, or I could subtract 49x from both sides. Well, if I want to keep my highest power positive, which, by the way, it just makes your life a lot easier, subtract 49x, subtract 49x, and I get x squared minus 49x equals 0. All right. How do I factor that thing? Look for this step always before you start factoring trinomials or differences of 2 squares. Always look for something to take out. In this case, I can take an x out, so I have x minus 49. Whoops. Oh, you know what? I wanted that to be cubed. And yeah. All right, so that would make that cubed. Sorry, you guys. So this time, I would take an x out. I'd be left with x squared. See how I wanted the difference of 2 squares left in there? And so now I have a difference of 2 squares. And so I know I'd go, aha. So I remember these. So that's plus 7 minus 7. And now I go, that's 7. This is negative 7. This is 0. And there's my 3 answers, and I was supposed to have 3 anyways. All right, sorry about that. I had the original one kind of messed up, but I hope you followed that. All right, good luck on your homework, you guys.